The water board employee asked me if I had a pool.
No pool. In fact, Elizabeth Adkins lives alone in a Northwest Atlanta townhouse. But her recorded water usage was like she was regularly emptying and refilling a pool.
And then I found out that I had an outstanding balance of almost $17,000.
Atkins says when she bought the home, she thought the HOA paid the water. It wasn't until she got a water shutoff notice that she realized she hadn't been paying the bill. And that's when she discovered the massive alleged back water bill.
I had the plumbers out immediately, and they found no issues. Water meter was working correctly.
Because Adkins did not find anything wrong or anything to fix, city officials said they could not adjust her bill.
But common sense would tell you didn't use all that water.
Yeah, now my water bill is $30 a month.
The city says she is responsible for the water use, even though Adkins believes the only explanation is a meter or record-keeping mistake.
This doesn't seem to add up, but because I don't have proof of anything going wrong or being wrong, I've got my hands tied.
Breaking news, the LA County Police Chief has now spoken out and says that Hannah intentionally missed her flight. Take a listen to the police chief.
We also have a missing person case that has gotten a lot of attention locally and nationally. On Friday, November 8th, 23-year-old Hana Kobayashi missed her connecting flight from LAX to New York, which the investigation determined was intentional. Over the next few days, she maintained contact with her family and was active on Instagram. However, the family last heard from Hannah on November 11th. After receiving concerning text messages and losing further contact, her family traveled to LA on November 13th and filed a missing person report. On November 15th, our missing persons unit assumed investigative responsibility. Detectives have been diligently reviewing video surveillance and employing various investigative techniques to locate Hannah, while her family has continued their personal search efforts. Tragically, on November 24th, during the search for his daughter, Hannah's father, Ryan Kobayashi, was found deceased. Our hearts go out to the Kobayashi family during this unimaginable time of grief. We remain fully committed to locating Hannah and supporting the family as they navigate their way through this tragedy.
Many people have used this image to say that Hannah is no longer on the missing persons list. However, that is inaccurate, and this list has not been updated in many years, as there is currently more than 4 individuals missing in the Los Angeles area. Hannah also has this heart tattoo on her forearm. To stay up to date on this case, make sure you click the playlist below. I'll keep you guys updated. What do you think? Drop in the comments.
2 years ago, after he lost his job for alleged inappropriate relationships with several students, he's awaiting trial.
As soon as it was discovered, it was reported to Childline, it was reported to us.
Police were alerted to a possible romantic relationship between then choir director Olivia Orts and a 17-year-old student by the high school principal in April. The month-long investigation, police say, turned up a treasure trove of evidence to support the claim, including text messages, a love letter, and overnights here at Orts' home while her husband was out of town.
He believed that it was an adult male that she was having a relationship with. She told him it wasn't what he thought, what certainly turned out to be accurate, and she ended up admitting that the letter was from a female student.
On May 5th, police executed a search warrant on the Orts home and confiscated a cell phone and iPad. Police say the two continued to communicate and exchanged 100 messages during a 2-day period last week until they got caught.
The two of them exchanged over 100 surreptitious communications using a music app so nobody would discover it.
A trip to the garbage can turned this 7-year-old into a hero when he found a bag of stolen cash near the scene of a robbery.
I didn't really know at all what I thought.
Griffin Steele and his father Shane were at a gas station putting air in their tires.
I got thirsty, so we went to the store, but before we went in, I found this $20 bill and it had this red dye on it.
A little strange, so he showed it to his dad.
Griff picked it up and handed it to me, but the side of it was red and it looked, I don't know, it was just odd.
But then Griffin went to the garbage bin.
I had some wrapping from my Gatorade bottle, so I went to the trash can and I threw it in, and there was tons of money with red dye on it.
And he goes, "Dad, this whole trash can full of money."
They called the police, and it turned out a bank had just been robbed about an hour earlier.
There's a lot of it that didn't have any of the things on it, but I wanted to do the right thing.
Police are looking for 35-year-old Brian Humphreys Jr. in connection with the robbery. As for Griffin, now that he's checked detective off his list,
it was $11,000 in cash. Diana, the housekeeping director, says Bridget found the money in a bag in the bottom drawer of a dresser. And Tony and Betty, the senior citizens it belonged to, were long gone. After living in Ypsilanti for 40 years, they were moving out of state to be closer to relatives. And it wasn't until they got to their destination that Betty realized she didn't have all that cash to pay the movers and settle into their new home.
Well, they knew they were missing the money. They didn't know where they were missing the money.
Betty's son told us she cried tears of joy and relief when she heard the hotel staff had the money and would be overnighting it to them.
Could you imagine yourself? You know, you got your money, you think you don't, you think you have your money, but then you get where you're going to your destination. You find out you don't even have it. And don't really remember where you left it.
As for Bridget, she doesn't think what she did was a big deal, and those who know her aren't a bit surprised that she did the right thing.
Oh, she's a wonderful employee. Excellent. But all the employees are. I would expect nothing less from her because she's just a wonderful employee.
She is a true example of the world is still a good place.
Tesla Autopilot saved this guy's life when he fell asleep behind the wheel, but then it took him on a 15-minute police chase, all while he was taking a snooze. Police received a call that there was a driver that appeared to be sleeping behind the wheel traveling down Highway 70. And that's exactly what they found when they reported to the scene. He had been traveling at highway speeds for several miles at this point. No matter what they did, they could not wake this guy up. They chased this car for over a mile, but Autopilot was not pulling over. Eventually, police positioned their cars in front of the Tesla and came to a gradual stop. This triggered Autopilot's sensors and made the car pull over. When the driver finally woke up, they identified a 25-year-old Michael Goodman, and they immediately performed a sobriety test. He was sober, but in their car they found a lot of drugs and alcohol. There were dozens of boxes of vape pens, but replacing the THC was methamphetamine. The driver, this is not him by the way, is facing multiple felony charges. But the driver does credit his Tesla for keeping him safe while he fell asleep.
Drop the gun! Drop it! Throw it down! Hey, stop! Stop!
It's like a scene straight out of a horror movie. A man suddenly appears and he's armed with a shotgun. Inside the home, a 14-year-old girl and her little sister. The man heads straight for the front door and bangs on it.
He was banging on my door. I started panicking.
The stranger starts to leave, but to the youngster's terror changes his mind. He turns back and this time opens the front door.
I was scared because I didn't know what was going on. I don't know what he's doing at my house.
For brave 9th grader Leah Kissinger, priority number 1 is saving her 4-year-old sister who's seated at the table. She scoops her up and carries her off so they can hide in another room.
I just thought to myself, I need to pick up my sister and I need to protect her at any cost.
Their golden doodle Loki keeps barking.
Drop the gun! Hey!
Deputies in Ocala, Florida arrive within minutes.
Drop the gun! Drop it! Throw it down! Hey, stop! Stop!
After tense moments, the deputies finally disarm the man and take him into custody. He was said to be suffering from dementia.
4 famous celebrities with insane family backgrounds. Number 4, Woody Harrelson. Known for Cheers and True Detective, Woody Harrelson has a dark family history. His father, Charles Harrelson, was a contract killer who murdered multiple people, including a judge, and evaded justice several times in the 1960s before eventually being sentenced to life in prison. Number 3, Kelsey Grammer. Kelsey Grammer, best known for Frasier, faced great tragedy. His father was killed by a random assailant, his sister was killed in a robbery, and 2 of his half-brothers died in a scuba diving accident, one of which was likely eaten by a shark. Number 2, Dylan McDermott. His life is like a crime drama. His mother was the girlfriend of a gangster who was murdered by his accomplice John Sponza when Dylan was 5 years old. Dylan grew up in a rough neighborhood and was later encouraged to take up acting by his stepmother, Eve Ensler. Number 1, Jackie Chan. Chan. Jackie Chan's parents had a remarkable past. His father, Charles, was a nationalist spy in wartime China, and his mother, Li Li, was an opium smuggler and gambler. Despite their very different paths in life, they married and fled to Hong Kong, where Jackie Chan was born. 4 famous celebrities with insane family backgrounds. Number 4, Woody Harrelson. Known for Cheers and True Detective, Woody Harrelson has a dark family history. His father, Charles Harrelson, was a contract killer who murdered multiple people, including a judge, and evaded justice several times in the 1960s before eventually being sentenced to life in prison. Number 3, Kelsey Grammer. Kelsey Grammer, best known for Frasier, faced great tragedy. His father was killed by a random assailant, his sister was killed in a robbery, and 2 of his half-brothers died in a scuba diving accident, one of which was likely eaten by a shark. Number 2, Dylan McDermott. His life is like a crime drama. His mother was the girlfriend of a gangster who was murdered by his accomplice John Sponza when Dylan was 5 years old. Dylan grew up in a rough neighborhood and was later encouraged to take up acting by his stepmother, Eve Ensler. Number 1, Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan's parents had a remarkable past. His father, Charles, was a nationalist spy in wartime China, and his mother, Li Li, was an opium smuggler and gambler. Despite their very different paths in life, they married and fled to Hong Kong, where Jackie Chan was born.
New York is once again proving why they're the worst place in the country to own a supercar. The owner of a stock Huracan Performante this week got fined $800 because his car was too loud. He's trying to sue the city because he says that this is absolutely absurd. See, all 5 boroughs of New York City are strapped with these things they call noise cameras. They're equipped with microphones, and if they sense that your car is too loud, they'll snap a picture of your license plate and send you a fine in the mail. Cameras are designed to discourage loud aftermarket exhaust, which New York sees as more of a nuisance than a freedom. That is obviously not the case for a stock Lamborghini, but these cameras cannot tell the difference between a supercar and a loud aftermarket exhaust. This owner was driving through Staten Island. He states he wasn't even driving recklessly, but the downshift caused the car to pop and trigger the noise cameras. Fines given out by these cameras are pretty ridiculous. Your first offense is $800. Your second offense is $1,700, more than double. And then your third offense is $2,700 right in your mail. The idea behind these, not so bad, but when you're punishing people for having legal stock cars, that's when it gets out of hand. Hopefully this driver will get his ticket removed, but still, New York State, do not buy a supercar.
The Russians have a spy whale. I can't make this up. This happened right now. In Norwegian waters, a whale had surfaced and unfortunately had passed, and it turns out it was a whale the Russians used to spy on other areas. Seriously, this right here was Havel Dima, and he's a beluga whale that has been going around since at least 2019 with certain equipment on his body. When he was found in 2019, at least according to this Norwegian publication, he was found wearing ammunition, a small camera mount, and then a buckle with the inscription, Equipment St. Petersburg. This is what that looked like. You could see the harness going this way and another harness going that way. Here's the deal here, though. It's no secret that Russia does try to use different kinds of marine life as spies or potentially to have some kind of tracking device, etc., because they've done it with dolphins, so it would make sense they would do it with whales. All that being said, this one is clearly out of commission, and hopefully people are able to take the technology that Russia put on it and study it to see what Russia is doing with this stuff.
The caller asking when she was moving out.
And I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, I bought your house in an upset bid."
This was news to Rogers. She had already paid off her Pitt County home of 12 years.
So I kind of thought it was a joke.
But she soon found out this was no trick. Her home, valued at $413,000, was sold for just $221,000. It turns out her HOA foreclosed on her home 11 months ago, after it says Rogers didn't pay her dues.
Well, why didn't you pay the $1,400? What's your response to that?
That's all I hear. And I say, I would have if I known.
Rogers claims she had no idea she was in an HOA. She also says she got no notice of the debt or the foreclosure, or even of the sale.
No one ever came to your door. No one ever called you. No one ever sent you an email saying you owed this much.
No.
The HOA never served her lawsuit papers. They just didn't do it. That is fatal.
Cafeteria food has always been the butt of jokes, but this isn't funny.
Look at what they're giving us at lunch.
Students, disgusted by what they're being served, are taking their beef online.
Look at this. This is the main meal. It looks like puke and applesauce. Nasty.
In Paterson, New Jersey, parents are up in arms after images of moldy food and expired milk were shared online. Can you even tell what this is? Apparently, it's supposed to be a chicken cheesesteak sandwich.
It was disgusting. And I definitely would not feed that to my children. I'm not sure that I would feed it to my pet.
Before the pandemic, many schools used to make lunch in the cafeteria. Due to staffing shortages and budget issues, those days are gone. Now, lunch is prepared by outside vendors. Students in Woodbridge, New Jersey say the food is inedible.
There's enough that us as parents have to worry about. Raw, uncooked, unedible food should definitely not be one of those things.
For 14 years, Debbie Salzman worked as a beloved lunch lady here at Denver Place Elementary School in Wilmington. She says she would upgrade the lunch of a child who didn't have enough money or give them extra food if they said they were still hungry.
If they didn't have enough money on their account, they would get a cheese sandwich instead with their sides. The other kids knew when they walked out into the cafeteria why they got the cheese sandwich.
She says she also would hear stories of food insecurity.
There was children that got a free lunch that would come back and say, "Miss Debbie, I'm still hungry. Didn't you get your belly full for supper last night?" And you don't know how many times they heard they didn't have supper that night.
Salzman says she kept Post-it note IOUs and paid out of her own pocket for kids, but the district suspended and terminated her this February for, quote, not keeping track of her register and providing food to her grandchildren without payment, end quote. Salzman admits to giving her grandchildren extra food too, but says it wasn't just them.
I broke the rule. I'm the one that broke the rule. It's not the district, and I really want everybody to know that.
Did you give pizza when they didn't need it?
Maybe sometimes, but in my heart, and that child tells me they're hungry, do I believe them or just say no?
Well, there were lots of deals, but very little choice, Jerika. Here in this wealthy New York suburb is the last standing full-size Kmart in the continental U.S. But just hours ago, it closed its doors for the very last time.
Well, I was coming to the closing, and I figured I had to wear nothing but Kmart clothes.
Sincere goodbyes and steep discounts.
Each box was 1 cent.
Wow. Gabriela Alvarez, who was among a collection of loyal customers here, says this was the first store she came to after moving to America 15 years ago. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm gonna miss the deals, definitely. It was like the clothes here was really cheap, so I'm gonna miss everything here.
It's the end of an era for this once iconic retail brand. Known for unforgettable jingles,
at Kmart, our blue lights lower prices every day.
And unbeatable blue light deals. Founded in 1899, the nationwide chain boasted around 2,500 stores in its heyday. Kmart now joins a growing list of retailers closing brick-and-mortar locations, struggling to compete in an online world.
Do they have a great website? Is it easier to navigate? Is there free shipping, for example? These are all things that are really important to consumers right now.
Shopping expert Trey Bodge says a nearly 2% jump in retail spending from this time last year shows consumers are still willing to shop where they see value.
We're becoming increasingly promotional, and so retailers really need to bring that to us in order for us to choose to shop with them versus the competition.
And all that's left of Kmart after today are a few locations in Guam and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Jerika?
All right, Chanel Call, thank you.
Just weeks after enrolling their daughter at Moss Rock KinderCare last fall, Aaron and Carly Hernandez noticed a drastic change in their 1.5-year-old's behavior.
She had started being really violent, hitting, kicking, screaming.
After witnessing an employee refusing to give her child water, Carly took a page from a spy novel and in December sewed this small recording device into her daughter's fur jacket. For nearly 7 hours, it recorded 2 employees of the Early Childhood Learning Center cursing. One of them repeatedly berated the Hernandez's toddler and other small children inside the facility.
You're nasty. I'm about to throw some
Wait for something over now. Touch it and you die. Now stop combining for just for her. Just gonna wait for me because I will end up in jail.
First thing that she said to me was, "We're not sending her back there," and she had tears in her eyes.
I just felt really deceived and just devastated for my child.
Oh my God, it's very disrespectful. It is insane. Cannot even find words to say.
Nanita Neff knew she was losing her 4-bedroom, 2,400 square foot Summerlin home. She'd fallen on hard times due to a series of severe medical problems. She had family members pass away, the economy tanked, and she filed for bankruptcy. Behind on both her mortgage and HOA dues, Nanita never recovered, so it was time for a short sale.
Getting so close for us to materialize and getting it done, so that I get out of this nightmare.
Working with a realtor, Nanita understood the short sale would provide her with $20,000 for relocation.
We had a very serious buyer that has funds, $450,000 in the escrow.
But that would never come to pass. Nanita was shocked to find out that while her short sale was in progress, her house went to auction, sold by her HOA over unpaid dues. The HOA says Nanita never told them about the short sale, and she admits that, saying her health problems and other issues were a distraction. County records show the house Zillow estimates at $430,000 was auctioned off for a mere $30,000.
The age-old question. How did the Egyptians build the pyramids? Perplexing historians all the way back to ancient Greece, stumping Napoleon's archaeologists, and becoming the butt of jokes today.
Did this start at the top and work down, or start at the bottom and work up?
Although we're fairly sure they started at the bottom, we still don't know exactly how they did it. There are all kinds of theories: ramps, cranes, and, yes, aliens.
Probably extraterrestrials.
Now we're getting a new potential answer, one a little more grounded in reality. Water. Researchers just published a study suggesting that hydraulic force could have helped build the Step Pyramid for Pharaoh Djoser, more than 4,600 years ago. It's the oldest of the 7 monumental pyramids in Egypt and was at the time the largest structure, coming in at 204 feet. That's King, or Pharaoh, LeBron James, stacked head to toe more than 30 times. Some of those stones weighing more than 600 pounds. The researchers now say the internal architecture of the pyramid supports a new theory: a hydraulic lift. A nearby structure might have functioned as a dam. Water could have flowed into shafts inside the pyramid that would have raised some sort of float carrying the stones, like a water elevator. They say the discovery represents a significant leap in our comprehension of ancient Egyptian engineering. The question is, where would the water have come from?
An alert from police. Someone is taking $1 bills and turning them into $100 bills. Authorities say it's happened about a dozen times in the past month.
A cashier at Ohana Foods Hilo had a feeling something was off when a woman handed her a $100 bill on Saturday.
And she proceeded to tell me that it's an old bill. But I had an old bill in one of our tip jars. And so I pulled out the old bill on the side and I was like, okay, it looks different. It's more of like a yellowish tone versus as the bill she gave me, it was black.
Ramos marked the bill with the counterfeit pen. Yellow means real currency, so she was confused.
I lifted it up one more time, and that's when I noticed the faded $1 marking. And I told her, I was like, this is a counterfeit bill. It's not $100, and I'm not able to give it back to you. I will have to report it to the HPD.
The woman gave Ramos another $100 bill, saying the money was from her payroll, but Ramos saw that it was fake too.
The tragic cause of former One Direction singer Liam Payne's death has been revealed. The singer was found dead at the Casa Sur Palermo Hotel in Buenos Aires, Argentina, after falling from a third-floor balcony. Authorities confirmed that Payne fell approximately 13 to 14 metres and suffered injuries incompatible with life, according to Alberto Crescenti, head of the city's emergency medical system. The exact circumstances surrounding Payne's fall are still under investigation, and an autopsy is expected to provide further clarity. It remains unknown whether the fall was accidental or intentional. Before his death, Payne was reportedly acting erratically in the hotel lobby, with witnesses describing him as aggressive. Reports suggest that he had been under the influence of drugs or alcohol and had smashed a laptop before being escorted back to his room by hotel staff.
I need to take a little bit of time out for myself, actually, because I kind of became somebody who I didn't really recognise anymore, and I'm sure you guys didn't either. Because, you know, I kind of got into this position, and not that I'm not grateful, I absolutely love my life, and I love making music now, and that was the most important bit, was going back to the roots of it to find out why it is that I like doing this, why I like making music for you guys. Who am I? What do I actually want to say to you? You know, it's a really privileged position that I'm in right now.
Payne had long struggled with addiction issues and had previously spoken openly about battling alcohol and prescription drug dependency, along with experiencing severe suicidal thoughts. His passing comes just days after he reunited with former bandmate Niall Horan, who was performing in a concert in Buenos Aires.
The rest of the boys really stuck by me, and when I needed them most, they, you know, kind of came to the rescue. Even Zayn as well, which is why, you know, I did send him a little thank you online, actually.
Payne leaves behind his 7-year-old son, Bear, whom he shares with singer Cheryl Cole, and had been dating influencer Kate Cassidy at the time of his death, though she had reportedly left Argentina days earlier. Fans have gathered outside the hotel to pay tribute to the beloved singer, holding a candlelight vigil in his honour as authorities continue to investigate the tragic incident.
Surveillance video shows those people hit not one but two houses within 30 minutes of each other, but thanks to one of their would-be victims, they didn't get far. It was Saturday night in Montrose. You see a couple casually walking by, but they stop and notice something. The woman walks up, drags a box towards her, picks it up, and walks away.
My wife and I, we were watching TV at the time.
The owner of that now stolen package, who didn't want to be identified, got an alert from his camera. He saw what happened.
Immediately, we rushed down and just try to chase them.
He and his wife ran out the house, caught up with the couple, and confronted them.
At first, we said, "Hey, stop! You got our package. Everything is recorded. Give us back the package."
But they say the couple fought back, even denied taking it.
We noticed that besides our package, they also have something else on their hand. They started to say that, we thought it was just the trash.
The couple eventually gave the package back and walked away.
By their reaction, they don't think there's consequence.
I had to take my phone and scan it to make sure it's real.
A message from the scan ticket confirming his winning, congratulating him, and directing him to the lottery office to cash in. Chung immediately came here to the lottery office in Miami Lakes, handed over that winning ticket, but left disappointed. This unemployed mechanic was handed this piece of paper claiming he owed the state money, specifically the Department of Economic Opportunity, for unemployment compensation. Chung got unemployment assistance during COVID, and through no fault of his own, the state told him he was overpaid and had a debt balance of $7,800. But like so many, he had applied for and was granted forgiveness. The overpayments were waived. This document right here is saying that your overpayment is waived.
Correct.
That you don't owe them anything.
Correct, sir. I called, I left 6 voicemail, no response, and then the next thing I call again, you get a hold of 4 hours, the line get cut off.
What does $10,000 mean to you?
Make car payment and everything, mortgage payment, everything.
Because you're unemployed.
Correct.
If you've ever had your car booted, you know just how frustrating it can be. But what if your car was booted in front of your own home by someone who has no right to touch your car?
I love my neighborhood.
Daniel Brock had just arrived home.
Actually, I was just parked right in front of my house, so...
with a work trailer in tow on a Friday last month.
And when I came outside, the security guard was booting the trailer.
Brock, who uses the trailer on the weekend, was going nowhere, courtesy of the HOA.
To show up, be home less than half an hour, and have a boot on your car seems quite excessive.
Empowered by the Ventana Ranch Homeowners Association, which is run by a company called Homeco, a private security patrol has been booting trailers, RVs, and the like on public streets.
Definitely confused because this is a city-maintained street. I was parked legally on a city street,
What's more, Brock has an email from the HOA, again through Homeco, giving him permission to have the trailers there for the weekend.
And when I went to show that email to the security officer, his supervisor wasn't interested.
After a long argument, Brock got the security guard to pull off the boot without paying the $75.
We begin with some sad news. The 3-year-old girl who had brain damage after visiting a dentist has died. Finley Boyle passed away last night with family members by her side.
The little girl died at Hospice Hawaii's home in Kailua. She had been there for almost a week. Her mother, Ashley, told KHON2 earlier she wanted to put her only child in a more restful state.
And I think the parents felt that Finley wouldn't want to live. I don't think any of us would. She didn't know she was alive, basically.
5 days ago, Finley's parents filed a lawsuit against Kailua dentist Lily Geyer and other staff members claiming negligence. Attorney Rick Freed says that lawsuit will now be moot, and the family will now file a wrongful death action. Freed and Finley's parents say the little girl visited the dentist on December 3rd. They claim she was getting numerous procedures done, most of them unnecessary, and was given strong drugs to sedate her, but there was no record of vital signs during the procedure. Freed believes Hawaii needs to look at legislation that offers patients more protection. At least one lawmaker agrees.
They claim they were repeatedly warned their children were not allowed to play in the common areas of the property. If things got too loud, they'd get written warning notices, saying the kids were interfering with the quiet enjoyment of their neighbors. If the noise didn't stop, there would be fines.
The letter indicated you had to cure the problem, which I anticipate meant getting rid of our children, or we would be fined.
In one example, Nate and Melissa say they had a group of kids over to watch the Women's World Cup. When Team USA scored a goal, the girls ran outside and cheered. Here's what he says happened next.
So then they come back in, probably not 2 minutes later, all scared to death because the neighbors had screamed obscenities at them.
A day later, Nate tells me they got a letter saying their children were not allowed to make excessive noise in the common areas. That's just one example. Both families say they tried to take their concerns to the board, but no one would listen. So they moved out and filed this lawsuit that describes years of being harassed about their kids playing outside in safe common areas, threatening letters, and ultimately fines.
Had the bylaws said that children couldn't play when I purchased the property, I wouldn't have purchased it.
I'm angry and I'm scared. I fear for the life of me and my child because they're taking away my right to protect myself. Do you want some applesauce?
Juliana Ferguson has reason to be afraid.
The restraining order was actually just granted in April.
The order was filed against a neighbor who Juliana says has been a serious problem for years. But that's not her only security problem in the Sunrise Ridge HOA on the east side of town.
And someone came into the garage while I was home and scratched my truck from front to back on both sides, all the way down to the metal.
She called police, but she was told not much can be done without proof.
There's nothing I could do that would protect me unless I have cameras to catch whoever did it.
So she had these cameras installed on the garage and front porch. Juliana says she spoke to at least 2 of her HOA board members who didn't see the cameras as a problem. But recently she got a letter saying the cameras couldn't be attached to the building. Juliana doesn't understand why, given a court recognizes there's a serious threat. Besides,
if you look around, you see security gates that are drilled into the building. You see satellite dishes that are drilled into the building.
Juliana says the HOA will let her have the cameras inside her home, pointing out through the windows, but she tried that already.
The cameras on the inside of the house create a blind spot to where it wouldn't protect my property fully. If I don't remove them on my own, that they will come onto my property and they will remove them for me.
This fight involved a fence and its boundaries. The fence cost the homeowner roughly $8,000. The litigation that followed amounted to more than $40,000. And as you'll hear, it was all over a few inches.
Betty Hooker lives in the Autumn Hills neighborhood in Waldorf. This is her backyard, and this is the fence that nearly cost her her home.
This dispute started like in 2017.
That's around the time she put up the fence after being granted permission by the Autumn Hills Homeowners Association. But in March 2018, the HOA board president said her fence encroached on the community's common area, this wooded area behind Betty's home.
Exactly 8 inches by his measurement.
A few months later, the HOA sent a letter letting her know the board would take legal action if the fence isn't moved. Betty obtained an estimate and went back and forth with the HOA on who would pay for it. The HOA then filed a complaint in circuit court in March 2019, asserting the fence was still encroaching, and they're seeking a fine of $25 per day dating back to November 2018, plus costs and attorney's fees. At the hearing, Betty represented herself.
I felt like it was a frivolous case and the judge will hear me.
It's just a shallow wading pool, but it's gotten Bob and Julia Taylor into some deep trouble.
It's just perplexing because we followed the rules.
The Taylors got a letter this month from the Oak Hall Homeowners Association demanding they remove the backyard pool. The HOA cited a neighborhood rule that no above-ground swimming pools shall be permitted. But the Taylors pointed out those same neighborhood rules clearly state portable or inflatable wading pools without filters up to 2 feet in height and located in backyards are perfectly fine.
1.5 inches below the 2 feet mark.
Sure enough, the pool is less than 2 feet tall, and it meets all those other requirements. But the Homeowners Association didn't care and threatened to sue anyway. Kirkpatrick Management Company and the law firm hired to send the settlement offer, an offer they say is unfair.
There's really 3 problems with it. 1, it's completely unnecessary. It's completely within the rules. 2, the settlement agreement itself actually inserts rules and regulations that are not in the covenants, so it's really a Trojan horse. And then 3rd, they're required to release any claims against the HOA or their agents, which is really just, again, something that's completely unnecessary. So the answer is no. It's not going to be accepted, and what the HOA and what Kirkpatrick Management Company needs to do is just send a letter saying we're no longer going to be investigating this pool, it complies with the rules, have a nice summer.
Well, the ticket's $175, and the $3 I gave to him, I'm out $178, all because I was trying to help out a homeless guy.
It happened Wednesday as Rusk was leaving the Victoria Square Mall.
As I came up to the stop sign, I stopped and I looked and I saw this homeless guy holding a sign. I instantly felt sorry for him.
That's when Rusk says he took off his seatbelt and grabbed $3 from his pocket.
I reached out, I had to undo my seatbelt and hang over and drop the change on the curb.
But this wasn't an ordinary panhandler. It was an undercover police officer. Moments after dropping the change, Rusk was pulled over by police on Victoria Avenue and issued a ticket.
I said, what do you mean? I didn't talk to any police officer. And he said, well, yeah, you gave him money. And I said, oh, the homeless guy. And that's when I was pretty shocked.
Regina police say this is nothing new. It's part of the intersection projects watching for traffic violations.
The intersection's probably one of the most critical areas when it comes to accidents, obviously, and our high volume intersections are ones that we tend to target. So we will run random intersection projects throughout the city.
The police officer's sign was not soliciting money. Panhandling is not considered a crime. However, Regina does have a bylaw that prohibits soliciting to vehicle occupants in high traffic areas.
Imagine having your driveway built so close to your next door neighbors that the only way you could get out your car was to drive over their property. Well, that's what 2 neighbors are dealing with right now. Instead of a driveway, it's out on the water. And getting it fixed might come at a hefty price. In his cowboy boots, Earl Hadley walks his dock, which no longer houses his boat. He feels his neighbor's dock project is denying him something most dock owners would expect.
I believe I have a right to get my boat out to the water.
Earl tells me his neighbor Michael's decision to expand his dock will block Earl's pathway to get his boat out on the water.
Visualize from that pole there another 7 feet, and that's where the extension of his boat is going to be.
So I asked his neighbor Michael about it. He tells me his dock is already in compliance with county code. And this permit shows his expansion is too.
My proposed marine improvements are in compliance as well. Otherwise, I don't think the county would have issued a permit.
He says the problem is with Earl's dock and another neighbor's.
My 2 neighboring docks are not built to that correct code.
Michael tells me he even reached out to Earl and the other neighbor 6 months ago to give them a heads up that they might want to modify their docks to bring them into county compliance. But Earl says that could cost up to $20,000.
Me as a taxpayer, that ought to be criminal.
Some of your local leaders thought this was a good idea.
Part of a Ruggles Township building ended up sitting just over the line on a farmer's land. That turned into a property dispute.
So the township cut the building, leaving part of it standing on both sides of the property.
Oh yeah, township officials also put up a fence between the two pieces.
They were going to tear it down early at Saturday morning before I knew it, tear the whole thing down. They tried that, we stopped them, so this was their solution.
Meet Brett Galloway, a farmer here in Ashland County. He says this year he realized the township building had been built partially on his property.
He wanted to work out an agreement. He says he's been at odds with the township over other property issues.
And the farmer considers this now one more reason why he can't use this section of his property.
That was their offer, just to buy the property, not address my damages. Their offer was half of what my damages were.
This house on Racetrack Road was once a happy home and the site of a thriving daycare. But to 74-year-old Hamid Salahuddin, it's a constant reminder of a 90-year-old record-keeping mishap and his title company's failure to catch it.
I found out about the easement in 2015.
Hamid and his late wife bought the property in 2001, but did not know the city of St. Petersburg had a 50-foot wide easement running through the house and yard. On Zillow, it says this piece of property is worth close to $1 million. What's it worth right now, knowing this easement's running through it?
Salvage value, the house and everything is just, it's worthless.
Hamid says in 2015, city workers came to check on equipment he didn't know was on his property. What is that?
They say it's a blow-off valve for the pipes.
The easement was granted in 1930 for a 36-inch water main, going from what is now the Cosme Water Treatment Plant to the city of St. Petersburg, 26 miles away, crossing hundreds of properties. A second 48-inch water main was added in 1962.
My heart stopped. I couldn't breathe. $18,000 is a really big amount to me.
Bernadette Hagan is stuck with a giant bill. It started with this new fence. It's in her backyard in Kingwood, but she doesn't own it. Because her property backs up to public green belts, the fence belongs to the Sherwood Elm Grove Trail Association. The association hired a contractor to replace the fence last August. Everything seemed fine until months later.
So on Tuesday, December the 6th, I suddenly lost half the power to my house.
Several experts told Bernadette the same thing. The underground electric line was damaged during the fence install.
I said, well, that was a long time ago. And he said, well, this is what happens. He says, if you don't sever a wire completely and you nick it, then in about 3 to 6 months, it will snap and you will lose the power.
And the kicker, repairs wouldn't be as easy as just replacing the damaged line.
They have to bring the house up to code.
The repair total?
$18,293, which pretty much put me in a heart attack, but I needed power.
Ryan Gustafson first purchased his home in 2018. He's recently been hit this summer with the landscaping violation for not having enough plants in his yard.
It's been the same as the day I bought it, really. So to suddenly be hit with this violation, I feel like they're 4 years late.
Gustafson says his HOA, First Service Residential, is requiring a plant for every 25 square feet of rock. The tree in his yard doesn't count as a plant, and potted plants aren't allowed. He says the HOA also hasn't specified what types of plants he needs.
These are things that I only learn by sending them email after email trying to get more information. It's not clear anywhere in their architectural guideline plan. It's not clear in the violation paperwork that they gave me.
The plants must also have a drip irrigation system.
The fact that we have to increase the amount of water that we're pouring into our yards at a time when our lake is at like the biggest low that it's ever been at just doesn't make any sense to me.
Now, a few months later, Gustafson is trying to play catch-up. After missing a few HOA meetings, he says he's trying to do the best he can to follow their guidelines and has reached out to his HOA on what he needs to do.
If I'm in violation, tell me that I'm in violation and what I need to do to fix it. That should be the bare minimum. And what I'm finding is that they can't seem to tell me what I need to do in order to fix the problem.
Eric Nathanson says his company bought a foreclosed home in the Woodbine community at an auction about a month ago. The plan was to flip the property and quickly sell it. But last week, Nathanson says the HOA told him there was about $2,000 in back dues from a previous owner, so they locked him out of the neighborhood.
We go to the gate, our realtor, our painters, our AC guys, buyers, everyone's turned away. They can't get into the gate.
Nathanson says he got a lawyer involved when they kept getting shut out.
Within, again, the last 3 days alone, we've had in excess of 10 showroom requests.
Realtor Michael Tice says they even lost an offer on the home when the buyer and inspector were turned away from the gate. On Thursday, they were allowed in after one of the buyers say they called police. Attorney Jeremy Zubkov says the HOA was breaking the law by not allowing the buyer and their guests into the property.
It's straight in the Florida statutes, in both the Condo Act and the HOA Act.
Zubkov says an HOA can never deny neighborhood access to a homeowner.
Absent a court order, a judge saying, don't let them in, they have to, as a matter of law, let them in the property.
Somebody finally has to stand up against these HOAs, fought hard for what was right, for truth, justice, and the American way.
Friedrich's battle to prove he's not part of the guard-gated HOA he lives in has lasted nearly 6 years and cost him more than $300,000.
It's outrageous. This was a simple dispute. Are you or aren't you in the HOA?
The banner proclaiming the Rancho Bel Air HOA is guilty of fraud proves Friedrich is not one to shy away from a fight. But the Supreme Court agreed with the trial jury that Friedrich did not have to pay and that the HOA committed fraud by negligent misrepresentation when they collected dues from him.
I was right, they were wrong, and they tried to steamroll over me, and it's just not going to happen.
The amount of money that you spend, I imagine, would far exceed any HOA dues that you would have had to pay all along, yes?
To protect one species of owl, wildlife officials are planning to kill another species of owl. Spotted owls are federally protected in the U.S. Despite that protection from human intervention, their populations have been declining in several states. Another nocturnal bird, the barred owl, is encroaching on the spotted owl's territory. Barred owls are larger, more aggressive, and eat more food. Robin Bound from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service explained to CBS News.
And they have basically pushed spotted owls out of their territories into marginal habitat where they generally die pretty quickly.
The Fish and Wildlife Service has a 30-year plan to kill up to 470,000 barred owls in order to save the spotted owl from extinction.
We evaluated all the potential methods for reducing barred owl populations, both non-lethal methods and lethal methods. What we found from that was that lethal barred owl removal did in fact improve the condition for spotted owls. We had almost immediate improvement in spotted owl survival.
The unwanted owls would be lured by using recorded animal calls. Once identified, the barred owls would be shot. This decision is highly controversial among conservationists and animal lovers. To protect one species of owl, wildlife officials are planning to kill another species of owl. Spotted owls are federally protected in the U.S. Despite that protection from human intervention, their populations have been declining in several states. Another nocturnal bird, the barred owl, is encroaching on the spotted owl's territory. Barred owls are larger, more aggressive, and eat more food. Robin Bound from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service explained to CBS News.
And they have basically pushed spotted owls out of their territories into marginal habitat where they generally die pretty quickly.
The Fish and Wildlife Service has a 30-year plan to kill up to 470,000 barred owls in order to save the spotted owl from extinction.
We evaluated all the potential methods for reducing barred owl populations, both non-lethal methods and lethal methods. What we found from that was that lethal barred owl removal did in fact improve the condition for spotted owls. We had almost immediate improvement in spotted owl survival.
The unwanted owls would be lured by using recorded animal calls. Once identified, the barred owls would be shot. This decision is highly controversial among conservationists and animal lovers.
Stationed overseas finds out he's being evicted from his house for failing to pay his homeowners association fees.
The service member says he set up automatic payments to the Wolf Creek Homeowners Association while he was serving abroad. But something went wrong and the payments stopped being received, and he says he wasn't notified until after they foreclosed on his house.
Mr. Banda is in fact a active duty member of the United States Air Force.
Air Force Master Sergeant Christopher Banda flew back to San Antonio from Turkey, where he's been stationed for 15 months, to argue before JP Court Judge Sylvia Ruiz that he should not be evicted from his home on the far west side.
The last thing an active duty service member who's serving our nation needs is to worry about where they're going to have a home when they come back.
I bought this house in 2015.
Banda still pays the mortgage on his home, but the HOA put a lien on the property, which was purchased by a new owner at auction. It's the new owner who's trying to evict Banda.
Whenever this house was being sold, whenever all this was happening, I was in the middle of a disaster, and I'm sorry I couldn't say, hey, stop that building from dropping. Let me go deal with my house being sold.
An HOA meeting in South Miami-Dade left residents furious this week after they were told their fees would significantly increase.
They say the rate hike comes on the heels of numerous other issues in the community.
They call the cops.
A homeowners association meeting at the Mandarin Lakes neighborhood in Naranja Lakes goes off the rails. The Tuesday night meeting was cut short after residents say the cops were called by the HOA.
It's ridiculous. Nobody got violent. We're simply talking.
Furious community members say the meeting escalated when the HOA board told residents their monthly fee would increase to $350 a month.
The issue is that the HOA fee is going up for the second time in 1 year, and we were given short notice about the increase, and a lot of things on the new budget don't make sense.
Resident Zoe Sosa says one of the things that doesn't make sense is how residents are still paying auto insurance for the security cars that canvass the community when security is now riding around in golf carts.
And we haven't seen any refund from the previous budget showing what happened with the cars, what happened with the maintenance of the cars, and what's going on.
In addition to the price hike in security, residents say there's broken amenities, cars getting constantly towed, and violent crimes happening in the neighborhood. But these residents tell us when they bring these problems up to the HOA, it falls on deaf ears.
They discredit me. They tell me, basically go away. This is how it is. If you don't like it, move out.
It wasn't screaming match, but he was, staying here. He was holding the spot and he wasn't moving. And I told him, you have to move. I'm not moving. There's no other car here. I'm next. I need this spot, and your car is not here.
The 27-year-old mariachi singer brought her mom, brother, sister, and 2 cousins. A spot open near the door until a man standing there claimed it. Security says the guy was holding the spot for another car about to pull in, and while he and Garcia exchanged words, police say her Suburban blocked 2 lanes of traffic, forcing cars to get around in the grass. Precinct 5 Deputy Constable told Garcia to move, and so did Houston police. But Garcia held her ground.
I'm doing nothing to you.
Until prosecutors okayed her arrest. The charge, obstructing highway or passageway.
She didn't cut nobody off. That's the damn truth.
Garcia plans to fight it, and if put in the same situation again, isn't sure what she'd do.
I don't know how to answer that. I don't, because, I wouldn't want to go to jail again for a parking spot, but I don't feel that I did anything wrong.
The HOA told her that she needed to remove the fence, the safety fence around her swimming pool. Amy?
Yeah, that's right. So the fence was built the same year that the home and the pool were built in 2014. Their homeowner's insurance company told them they are required to have a fence around their pool, but just last year, 2 years later in 2016, the HOA told the family to take it down.
4 things motivated Susan Durgaprasad and her husband to install this safety gate around their backyard pool.
Okay, Mango, you're
6-year-old Kaz, 7-year-old Raya, and their dogs Mango and Coconut.
It provides safety for the entire community and our family.
But their homeowners association in Bender's Landing in Spring says this fence is not compliant with association guidelines and it must go.
The pool fence is not an eyesore. It blends into the home. It matches our home. And there's probably been at least 50 pool fences of this same type installed in this neighborhood.
Really? We sent Sky 2 over the subdivision to check that out. In a matter of minutes, we found 7 pool fences just like Durgaprasad. lots. By email, Bender's Landing HOA President Bruce Johnson contends that corner lots like hers can only have a non-privacy fence constructed of iron.
I don't feel that I'm doing anything wrong. I think I'm doing what we're supposed to do, which is taking care of people around us.
4 years ago, during the COVID crisis, Martin and his wife set up a free water stand in front of their house as a goodwill gesture.
What's up, Larry?
Inviting neighbors, kids, and delivery drivers to stop by every day to grab a cold one.
What do you think about David giving out free water?
I think it's fantastic.
I figured what better way to be an asset to the community than cold water.
The free water stand was such a hit, the Martins kept it going.
Thank you.
Stocking up on water while paying for most of it out of their own pocket. Some neighbors have also stepped up to help.
Every year, I'm sure I get about 30 or 40 flats of water. Sometimes I open the front door and there's 2 flats. I don't know who dropped them off. It's just a surprise and it's fun.
But the goodwill gesture appears to have hit a snag. Back in May, the Martins received a notice from FS Residential, the management company that oversees the Canyon Trails Homeowners Association. The Martins were cited for storing items in plain view and were fined $50. The fines were increased to $100 a month in June, July, and August.
It's absolutely asinine. I don't understand. I'm sorry. I don't care that it's blue and gray and my house is tan and brown. It's a water cooler with cold water for the community.
Martin tells us he was contacted by his HOA a couple years ago and was under the impression it was okay to have the water stand. What he wants to know now is, why is this an issue again after all these years?
I just don't understand what fight they have, why they want to fight, because I've made it very, very clear I'm not stepping away. I'm not putting the cooler away.
This man bought about $80 worth of merchandise at the Walmart Supercenter on Lexington Road September 30th and paid with 8 fake $10 bills. In this surveillance video, you can see the man pull the bills from a white envelope and hand them to the cashier, who counts them and puts them in the cash drawer. Less than an hour later, Detective Franco says the man did the same thing at this Walmart off Epsbridge Road in Oconee County. According to investigators, the suspect then went to another Walmart off Collins Hill Road in Lawrenceville and returned the items from both stores for real cash. Detective Franco says right now he's investigating about half a dozen cases where people used smaller counterfeit bills because smaller bills get less scrutiny.
So if someone's paying with 10 20s or even 10 10s, you can look real quick and you can see, well, that's the same serial number. That's not possible. No, they don't have same serial numbers.
The parents of a 7-year-old girl who was tragically killed when a sand hole on a Florida beach collapsed on top of her.
Teresa and Jason say that losing their daughter Sloan to this tragic accident has turned their lives upside down. They want parents to know about this hidden danger in the sand, and they're sharing Sloan's story to save other families from similar anguish.
The kids were looking up, finding seashells and playing in the sand.
Jason and Teresa Mattingly say they were enjoying the perfect beach day with their 2 young children when the unthinkable happened.
We go to the beach, we think of water safety, and this never, ever once crossed my mind. And of course, looking now, I'm like, well, of course. And so that part's really frustrating because I'm like, man.
Last month, 7-year-old Sloan and her 9-year-old brother Maddox were digging in the sand at this Fort Lauderdale area beach when things took a devastating turn. The sand hole suddenly caved in on them. Sloan was completely buried beneath her brother.
It's kind of a blur, and it's probably maybe my mind protecting itself, but it just happened so fast. And in my mind, I had her in my hands, but the weight of the sand was too much.
It didn't matter that we were literally right there. It was just a hole and there's nothing. And then it just became chaos and horror.
A judge sentenced 2 Gwinnett County parents to 20 years in prison for locking their son in a basement. Channel 2's Tony Thomas tells us that both parents told the judge they want to parent again. Therian and Ricardo Wimbish both wanted to be let out on time served for abusing 2 of their 10 children, but the judge said no way, giving them each 30-year sentences with 20 years in prison. Therian Wimbish, who has fought judges and lawyers every step of the way during this case, for the first time admitted she was responsible for locking her oldest son in a basement for 18 months. The judge called the parents' actions incomprehensible, inhumane, and harsh, and she told them her sentencing was no judgment on their religious beliefs or corporal punishment. Both parents told the judge they want to parent again.
As far as what we did, it wasn't right. And I'm willing and most definitely hoping that the court will grant me the opportunity to be able to be rehabilitated.
I so want to go hug my little Ricardo and let him know that I'm sorry. To hug all the other 9 and let them know, not their fault, not even his fault. It's all Mama's fault.
And now to the story of people unexpectedly forced out of their homes in South DeKalb. Nearly 200 people will have to find a new place to live. An apartment complex is terminating every tenant's lease with a 60-day notice.
Yeah, Wendy, we were out there at that apartment complex. We saw for ourselves that the property needs an extensive overhaul when you're talking about repairs. We found out initially that owner gave renters 30 days to move out, but management changed that to 60 days. Now today, management telling us that if renters don't move out before that deadline, they'll have no choice but to take them to court, like this one behind me.
It's wrong. You're just saying on the 31st of August, y'all got to be out. Well, how can you put us out within 2 months?
It's a notice of termination. Residents living at the Forest at Columbia Apartments in South DeKalb say they weren't prepared for.
Everybody out here is not going to find somewhere to live in 2 months.
Tuesday night, every single resident living at this complex, including families, was slapped with this notice.
And you can't just put us out our homes. We have children.
The owner announcing termination of all leases by the end of August.
It just did not allow us enough time.
Residents say they were blindsided by this move. Many who can't afford to move in such a short amount of time.
I was pissed.
And it just don't make sense. It do need improvement a lot, from bottom to top, inside and out. But I don't feel like they should make us have to go.
All right, y'all. A driver told us that he is paying $2,000 to fix his car after hitting prongs cemented into what's called the gore on the expressway along the perimeter. And he's not the only one who's had this kind of problem. So here's what we're talking about. Okay, this is the gore. The 2 giant white lines are telling you don't drive in here, but dude did and hit that, and we got problems.
Yeah, Justin, I found out from this driver he had to enter the gore because he was lost and had to refer to his GPS. We know a lot of drivers tend to veer over for mechanical issues if their car stalls out. You can see on the screen as my photographer zooms in those 2 metal prongs that are sticking out in that gore area. Now,
I don't want this to continue to happen. I don't want it to be a tragedy.
That's why Atlanta driver Brian Briggs says he wants to warn drivers about these 2 metal prongs sticking out of the highway near the westbound lanes of I-285 and Peachtree Industrial Boulevard.
It was like immediate pop, pop. I heard and felt it.
He says the impact after hitting the prongs caused more than $2,000 in damages to his BMW earlier this month.
Now I'm really at disgust to why would they leave something like this in the roadway.
Concerned about the treatment of their toddler at a San Antonio daycare, a husband and a wife sewed a recording device into their kid's jacket.
The audio then captured employees using profane language and one even threatening to harm kids in her care.
I'm gonna go and I'm gonna beat both of y'all. That's what I'm gonna do. You're in.
Just weeks after enrolling their daughter at Moss Rock KinderCare last fall, Aaron and Carly Hernandez noticed a drastic change in their 1.5-year-old's behavior.
She had started being really violent, hitting, kicking, screaming.
After witnessing an employee refusing to give her child water, Carly took a page from a spy novel and in December sewed this small recording device into her daughter's fur jacket. For nearly 7 hours, it recorded 2 employees of the Early Childhood Learning Center cursing. One of them repeatedly berated the Hernandez's toddler and other small children inside the facility.
9-year-old Jason is concerned.
I'm still worried a little. I'm still a little worried because I just think it's going to get all stolen, you know?
This sheet of paper is the cause for the concern. A list left earlier this week by Homeowners Association of Auburn Greens that mandates leaving garage doors up from 8 to 4 Monday through Friday.
I don't think it's a good idea because they're going to steal my bike. I got electric scooter. I got electric wheelchair. I got all kinds of stuff. And I just don't think it's a good idea to have it open.
For every home like Jason's that is following the new rule, there are plenty of others that are not, like Shali Iya.
I have nothing to hide. I understand somebody had people living in the garage. I don't. I am following the rules. All I'm asking is a reasonable way of going around this. If you want to do a bi-monthly inspection of my garage, I have nothing to hide. If I have something that's being stored in there and you don't like it, I'll remove it.
Residents say a $200 fine and an administrative hearing are the potential punishment for keeping the door down. But for some, paying the fine may be worth avoiding a burglary.
Let me give you the $200 fine right now. Give me a month so that I can get my stuff out, and I might as well empty everything out and leave the garage door open permanently, because there's no point of having a garage door then.
A call to the Homeowners Association for Auburn Greens wasn't returned, and the office was closed during the hours it had posted as opened. As some residents seem to be testing how open the garage needs to be, regardless of the choice to keep the door up or down, many residents share a common disdain for the rule.
I hope it does change. I hope it does.